everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lucy and in today's video I will be tier ranking popular romance book tropes. So if you are new to my channel, you may not know that I am a huge romance reader. In particular, I really love Regency and historical romance. But I also dabble in a lot of different romances. I'm a huge fan of more kind of dark fantasy romances, I would say. And I don't read as many contemporary romances, but that is definitely something I'm trying to do more of this year. So stay tuned for some more romance book recommendations. But for now, I wanted to basically show you guys which romance tropes are my ultimate favorite, and I thought there is probably no better way to do this than doing a tier ranking of my favorite romance tropes. So I have just found a romance tier ranking, you know, template on Tier Maker, which is a popular tier ranking site you may know, and basically I intend to sift through these tropes and see which ones are my favorite. So I'm very glad you can join me on this, what is sure to be a fun adventure. And I have got my laptop ready to go and I'll be recording my screen. So let's just get going with the tier ranking. Okay, so here we go. I just found this kind of tier ranking on Tier Maker, but I will leave it linked down below if you do want to check it out yourself and do it alongside this video. So here we go. Here's all the kind of tropes at the bottom here. The first one up is teacher-student. Now, I have actually not read a lot of teacher-student romances, and that is because I tend to avoid them. There is something about teacher-student which obviously is a very forbidden type of romance, and I know a lot of you guys out there may really enjoy like more of a forbidden romance. I definitely enjoy a forbidden romance, but there's something about teacher-student which just really like, I just can't really stomach. It just makes me feel a bit uncomfortable, and I think it's that whole kind of imbalance of power in that situation which I just can't really find romantic. So I think in this circumstance I'm going to avoid this. I am not a big fan. I am happy to have my mind changed on this. If you would like to recommend some teacher-student romances that you actually think are the exception to the rule in terms of like the majority of teacher-student romances, do let me know. But for now, this is a hard avoid for me. Goodbye, I will not be involved in this. Okay, the next one is fake dating. Now this one I can definitely get on board with. I would say, do I put this in God tier or do I just love this? I kind of don't know. I think fake dating is really great when you've got a kind of love interest who is definitely more, not mean, but like a bit like grumpy and angry and a bit more like teasing. I find that when they're kind of forced to fake date, that is often a lot of fun. You know what, I'm gonna put this in God tier. I think fake dating is like a recipe for just amazing kind of proximity scenes, and I just love that. So fake dating is definitely God tier for me. Let me know if you have any fake dating recs. I would love to see them. Okay, so next up is a sports romance. I have read no sports romances, so I'm just gonna put this in I think, because it's like, I haven't read any and I'm willing to have my mind changed on this, but sports romance doesn't really like set my heart racing, you know? I just think it might be quite underwhelming. I guess like the thing about sports romances is you obviously have a love interest who is probably very athletic, very muscular, very kind of fit. And for me, that's just not the most important part of a romance. I would say it really is about the personality and the banter at the end of the day, which I don't really think needs to be a sports romance to make that happen. So I'm gonna keep that as for now. Forced proximity is next, and guys, let me just tell you, forced proximity is one of my ultimate favorites. So I kind of think this has to be God tier. Is there anything better than a fantasy romance book or just any old romance book where they are forced to be together, whether that's a journey, you know, kind of having to go on an epic quest with each other? Chef's kiss. I adore forced proximity. This is going in God tier for me. The next one is bad boy, good girl. And this is a hard one because whilst I love bad boys, if it's like a bad boy trope on its own, I would say absolutely on board, sign me up. But the whole kind of good girl trope, I'm just a bit like over it slightly. I really like heroines who are very independent and who are quite feisty. I think this is because I'm currently watching season 2 of Bridgerton, and Kate Sharma, or Kate Sheffield as she is in the books, is just the perfect epitome of like a feisty, witty heroine who knows what she wants and isn't afraid to kind of tell the love interest exactly what she thinks. And for me right now, I just really love those heroines, so I'm actively seeking those out. So I would put bad boy, good girl in the kind of like area. I think it's good enough, like I really like bad boys, but you know, the kind of good girl trope, meh, I could take it or leave it. Mafia romance. Okay, so this is something that you probably wouldn't expect, because I've just said that I really like historical romances and Regency romances and fantasy romance. I really like mafia romances. I actually used to read, this is like kind of cringe, but I feel like you all would understand me. I used to love a Twilight fanfiction called, I can't remember what it was called. I think it was called Sempra, but this is basically now a published work of fiction by J.M. Darhauer, I believe. And that fanfiction was everything. That was a mafia romance between Edward Cullen, Bella Swan, of course, but obviously that just really proved to me that mafia romance is really exciting. I've also recently read Sophie Lark's Brutal Prince book. I think it's part of the Brutal Birthright series, and that features 2 mafia families, and the first book, Brutal Prince, sees the kind of heir of one family marry a kind of daughter of the other family, and this is a forced marriage as well, or an arranged marriage. So I absolutely love that, and for that reason I'm putting mafia romance in love. I really enjoy mafia romances, so please do let me know if you have any recommendations for me. So the next trope is grumpy sunshine. I actually really like this trope. I think having a grumpier love interest is so much fun, and having that heroine who is just so joyful and jolly is amazing too. So I would put this in love, I think. I really like that kind of balance of a heroine who is always trying to wear down the grumpier love interest. I think that's so much fun. Next up we have bodyguard romance. I have read no bodyguard romances really, and I just don't know if I would enjoy them. Like, I don't know, I'm on the fence about this one. I'm gonna put this in like, because I don't have big feelings either way. I've not really read a lot of bodyguard romances, so let me know if you would have any recs for me, because I feel like I do probably need to get into this trope, you know? Okay, right person, wrong time. I hate this trope so bloody much. It's just so annoying, and I think like, I just can't, no, like just give me the satisfaction I want now. So I'm just gonna put this as avoid. I feel like this is just unnecessary angst for me, and I do like a nice bit of angst, don't get me wrong, but I also like a satisfying payoff, like quite, you know, like halfway through the book basically. So I'm gonna put that in avoid. I'm just not a big fan of that. My favorite trope, or one of them, only one bed. This has to go God tier, because this is the creme de la creme of romance tropes. I just adore this trope so much, and I actively seek out romances where they have this trope, because there is something just so amazing about watching a couple who have this kind of, you know, desire for each other being forced to just spend the night in one bed and just like, we'll just see what happens, shall we? Like, it's just perfect. I actually think I need to read more romances that feature this trope. Again, I'm asking for recommendations. Let me know if you have a favorite for the only one bed trope. Okay, love at first sight. I'm going to put this in avoid. I hate love at first sight so much. I am all about the build. Like, I love a lot of chemistry, a lot of brooding, a lot of pining really, and that's why I really hate love at first sight, because I just think it's not realistic. And there are some romances which do love at first sight well, but for me, all of my favorite romances have definitely not been love at first sight. They've all been about kind of like, you know, hate each other first, or don't really know each other and maybe don't like each other and then get to like each other later. I think the payoff is so much better with that kind of build up rather than love at first sight. I'm sorry if you guys are a big fan of love at first sight, I'm just not. It's not for me. Love triangle. You know what, I'm kind of like, I feel like in the early YA days, like the Twilight era, Hunger Games, when love triangles were the hot thing to do. I hated them then, but now I kind of feel like they're coming back. Like, I kind of like a love triangle again. So I may put this in like, because I think there's a lot of potential for love triangles if it's very, very clear who the OTP is at the end. So OTP is one true pairing. You can tell I used to read a lot of fan fiction back in the day, but I just think as long as you can clearly say who the end goal is, then I think a love triangle is really, really fun. But the next trope is single parent. I do not like this. This is going to sound really awful of me, but I really hate romances where kids are involved. I'm gonna put it in avoid. I can't deal with it at all. I know that is very, very, I don't know, not very mature of me probably, but I just find I really like the early stages of a couple falling in love. I also want to say that this doesn't mean that I'm against like older romances. In fact, I really love an older romance, like featuring an older heroine and an older love interest, but as long as it's not too much about the children, or as long as the children are done in a really great way. So a really good example of this is in the Bridgerton series, and that book is To Sir Philip with Love, which is Eloise's story. I mean, this is a slight spoiler for Bridgerton, so feel free to jump forward 5 seconds or so, but I really love how season 2 is building up to that book, and I'm not gonna spoil how, but oh my god, am I obsessed with that. Another recommendation for single parent, which I actually really love, is The Governess Game by Tessa Dare. That features a heroine who becomes a governess for basically 2 children and falls in love with their father, essentially. That book was done super, super well. The children are hilarious. So if the children are done right, I think the single parent trope can be done really well, but I wouldn't actively seek this one out, and so I'm going to overall avoid that one. Okay, friends to enemies to lovers. I don't know how I feel about this one. I don't really like friends to anything, really. Although, it's kind of good because I feel like this trope, friends to enemies to lovers, was done really well in Sarah MacLean's A Rogue by Any Other Name, which is part of the Rules of Scoundrel series. So they had a romance where they were childhood best friends, really close at childhood, then they drifted apart and became like enemies because of certain events, and then they become lovers. So I really, really enjoyed that trope in that situation, in that book. So I think I'm gonna just put this in like. I think it's really good, and I think as I will come to, really love the enemies to lovers bit, but I don't necessarily love the kind of like having a basis of friendship. I don't know what that says about me, but there you go. Okay, the next trope is age gap. I don't like this at all. I can't really get on board with age gap romances just because I just don't find it very appealing, and I'm constantly thinking about the age gap, and it's just, I'm sure the age gap is probably very appealing to some people, but I just don't have that certain disposition, I guess. I just can't find that romantic. So I'm gonna put that in avoid. There are a lot of tropes here that I'm avoiding, but if you have an age gap romance that you think, Lucy, you need to read this, then please do let me know. But for now, I'm gonna put this in avoid. Accidental pregnancy, now we're talking. I actually really, really love books that feature this, but however, it has to be done right. There has to be enough of a build-up. There has to be kind of like a pregnancy that adds something to the story, not like a nice addition at the end, for example. So I'm gonna put this one in love. I do really like that romance trope, and I think it can add a lot to a book if an accidental pregnancy, you know, is very, very like instrumental to the plot, is what I'm trying to say. But if it's just thrown in there for no good reason, then I'm not a fan. A bully romance. Now, I may be revealing myself here, but actually I really like this romance trope. In particular, I really like this romance trope in The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. Now, I would say that is definitely a sort of bully romance because Cardan, Prince Cardan, and Jude do have a kind of like bully relationship. He is very, very awful to her. So I would put this one in like or love. I don't know what it is, but I really like a love interest who just really hates the heroine and then comes round, and that is just something that I really, really love, so don't judge me. The next trope is brother's best friend. I am not really on board for this. I would say I don't seek it out, but I have nothing really against it. I'm just about it. I'm gonna put it in because it's like, I'm sure it will be good in some context, but I just haven't read a lot of Brother's Best Friend, and it doesn't massively appeal to me. Like, it's probably not something I'm actively looking for. So I'm gonna put it there. The next trope is friends with benefits to lovers. I'm also a bit on the fence about this one because I just don't feel like it's as much of a jump in terms of, you know, really learning to love someone. Like, I think if you're friends with benefits, like, there is a degree of, I like this person. So I don't think it's as surprising when they become lovers or admit their love. And for me, that payoff isn't very kind of exciting. So I'm gonna put this one in like, because I would read this, but I don't find that it has the potential to be so swoon-worthy, you know? So I'm just gonna put like there. So the next one is workplace romances. I have not read a lot of workplace romances. I think I would probably like them, but I think equally they don't set my heart aflame. So I'm gonna put this one in, oh yes, in here, because I think I'm not fussed about them either way, but I wouldn't seek them out. So that's probably towards the lower end of the tier ranking. So workplace romance is gonna stay there. Now the next trope, we have all been waiting for this, haven't we? Because I am a huge fan of enemies to lovers. Like, you just send me all the recommendations, guys. I love enemies to lovers so much. And I have done a video all about my favorite enemies to lovers recommendations. So I will leave that down in the description bar or linked above somewhere, and you can check out my recommendations. But for now, this is going straight up to God tier because this is flawless, and there is something so good and satisfying about true enemies to lovers, and you can't tell me any differently. I just love the build up. I love the kind of hatred, because there's a fine line between love and hate, as we all know. It's perfect. I love it so much. The next one is strangers to lovers, and I feel like most books are like this. Like, surely there's a lot of strangers to lovers situations. But I do really like that. I think there is something quite nice about strangers to lovers. So I'm gonna put this one in love. The next one is childhood friends to lovers. I am just really not that bothered about that, but I don't think I dislike it enough to put it any lower than like. I think it's good, but I wouldn't be actively seeking out childhood friends to lovers. But I don't really think I detest it in the same way as these ones, in avoid, and you know, I think it deserves to be in like. I like this trope. Now the next one, guys, is slow burn. Sign me up all the way for a slow burn. I adore slow burn romances so much, and as long as there's enough kind of peppering of emotion and desire along the way to keep the slow burn interesting, then I am all for slow burn, and I would really appreciate any recommendations you have. So the next one is One of Us is Famous. I haven't read like any romances that include this trope, actually. I kind of feel like this wouldn't really excite me that much. I don't really find famous romances that exciting, unless it's a royal romance. If they're royals concerned, then I'm on board. But I think One of Us is Famous is probably gonna go in because I have no desire to read that really. I hate everyone in the world but you. Oh my god, yes please. I'm gonna put this in God tier. I love this trope so much. Like, if anyone hurts you, I will kill them type of thing. Adore it. I think it's perfect. And I've not read enough of these tropes, I don't think, because I think they're very different than enemies to lovers. Like, there's something very protective around the I hate everyone but I love you type of trope. That, you know, with enemies to lovers, it's not quite the same. So I would put this in God tier as well. The next trope is right person, not enough time. I can't really think of any romances I've read that have that trope. Can you please leave some down below? I'm asking for a lot of recommendations in this video, but I don't think I've read any books with this trope actually. So I'm gonna put this one in F, just because like I don't really know if I like this trope or not. The next one is friends to lovers. I don't really like Friends to Lovers, I'll be perfectly honest. I'm gonna put this one in just because I don't seek it out. I don't find it exciting, guys. I don't know what's wrong with me. I just love the enemies to lovers, okay? There's something wrong with me, I know it, but Friends to Lovers to me is just a little bit boring and not as exciting. The next one is Good Boy, Bad Girl. I don't know about this one either. This is the last trope, so I feel like I should be putting it somewhere good. But I don't know if this excites me. I think having a bad girl, definitely I'm like on board for. But what about bad boy, bad girl? Like, where's that trope? Because I'm on board with that. I would say this one as well is a like, I would say. I think I like that trope. I love kind of a dynamic where, you know, there's a very feisty woman who knows what she wants and the boy who's probably a bit more like quieter and good and, you know, kind of very morally right. And I haven't read enough of those romances, so I'm gonna put this one in like. So this is the end of my tier ranking. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed where I put everything. I think, to recap, my god tier will always be fake dating, forced proximity, only one bed, enemies to lovers, slow burn, I hate everyone in the world but you. I mean, I have a type, what can I say? I just love romances that have all of these tropes, and maybe I should do a video about all these tropes, like, and recommendations that I have for you guys, because I am always searching them out. I really hope you enjoyed this video because I think it was a little bit of fun. I'm sorry if I put your favorite trope somewhere down on the list, but this is just my personal opinion and this was so much fun to film, so thank you for watching this video. Do let me know if there's any other tier rankings you would like me to do, if you'd like my opinions on, you know, other romance tropes, maybe we can find more of these, or anything else that you would like me to rank. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you very soon for my next video. Bye!